Okay, we're ready. Let's call the meet. 8:16 I have here. All right, let the minutes show that everyone is present and accounted for. Well, I don't know about accounted for, but they're all present. We need a motion to approve the agenda, and we can do the minutes at the same time because they weren't that complicated. So if we could
Make
get
a motion to approve the minutes and the
by Doak.
agenda and the minutes.
Second.
Okay, seconded by Joe. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. All right, first up is going to be Tracy.
All right, so the first on the agenda is to review the 2021 budget to date. You guys all got a copy of that. We're right on schedule to begin with. So on the first page, you're going to notice under training, we did have, we've got about 58% of that, which was Green Bay Metro. Their bill was paid. We pay them every year for their response in case of a chemical spill, as well as their involvement with nuclear power plant drills and exercises. And then on page 2, under the 52602 budget, you're going to notice under emergency notification system that that's 100% used, and that was to help pay for Rave Alert. Other than that, there's really not too much on there to talk about unless anyone has any questions.
Any questions? Okay, next.
So upcoming training and exercises. So last month in February, we held a virtual EOC activation. That went very well. We did have a large number of individuals that were able to get in on Zoom, as well as access a state website that we use for drills and exercises. There was a few comments that came out of it on how to access some documents that we're going to be moving forward with to make that accessible. That's it on that, unless there's any questions.
Okay, Sirens.
So just so everyone is aware, I had mentioned at the last meeting that Point Beach has become what is called IPAWS primary. With that, they are no longer maintaining the sirens here in Kiwani County that they had previously maintained. So while they still hold ownership, if anything goes wrong, they're not looking at putting any more money into them. We'll be moving forward with reaching out to municipalities to see if they want to take over ownership of those sirens.
Any questions? You're going to put one up in your backyard? You could always use it for a tree stand or something, you know. Do you? Wake you up when you fall asleep. Okay. Brief us on COVID-19.
So our office continues to do the PPE once a month that we reach out to the emergency responders. We continue to do the mortuary survey 3 times a week out to the state for mortuary survey teams, situational awareness. And then our office also helps with the vaccination clinic, mainly on the side of coordination of the volunteers. I do want to mention we do have a number of volunteers that have been helping out, whether it is emergency responders. We have some individuals from the public health committee that have been helping out, as well as those have already been vaccinated, and then a number of other individuals. Those vaccination clinics would not move as smoothly without their participation.
Okay. The EOC brief update.
So we had that yesterday. We had a number of individuals on there. Kiwani Extension has a lot of information on their website in regards to some of the guidance that they are following for their office in regards to meeting with people, holding trainings, or in person or online courses. People can go to their website to find out more information. Public information, they continue to update the county and state numbers as information is available to them. And that information is posted on the county website. They're also now starting to put some information on there, I guess, about each week's vaccination schedule of those that are eligible to receive vaccinations. And again, that's on the county website. Law enforcement received some masks from Badger State Sheriff Association. And then they did talk about that Department of Justice is talking about a possible second COVID grant. And they did mention the stuff they were able to get from their first grant. Highway mentioned that they don't have any COVID-related requests and that their staff is staying healthy. Our office talked about the stuff we just previously mentioned. And then we also talked about how April marks the start of severe weather awareness. So April 15th is a statewide tornado drill in which individuals will be notified once around 1:30, 1:45, and then there's another one at 6:45 in the evening, whether it's sirens being sounded or rave notification going out.
Okay. On that weather drill, question is going to come up, I'm sure. If municipalities don't take the sirens on that are out there, because we're utilizing those sirens for that, what is going to be the alternative?
So if there was a real tornado, well, I guess for the drill, we can utilize our emergency notification system, which is RAVE. So since it's a test, we can send out a message to all those who are registered with RAVE to just notify them this is a drill, this is a statewide, tornado warning. We can do that. If it was a real incident, people are getting notified by National Weather Service that utilizes iPause. We're getting notified via our phones from whatever TV station we have on our phone or radio station. So a lot of us have sirens in our pockets, is what they call.
Okay.
So, because the other thing is, not all of the municipalities have a siren in their township here in Kiwani County.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Any questions for Tracy? Okay. Sheriff.
All right, we're up. First is the 2021 budget. You're going to start to see there's really nothing that's come up to deviate from what we have budgeted thus far. But you're going to start to see some that we have a lot of expenditures in the front year. So all of a sudden in the next month or two, if you start to see on that right-hand column where all of a sudden we spent 90% or 80%, a lot of those are going to be one-time costs. Like I know I just got all the invoices for our yearly maintenance for our Spillman system, which is now through Motorola. So probably in next month, you're going to see some of these starting to creep up. Another one is our time system. There's a line item just for the payment of time system. So once we pay it, that's basically capped out at 100. So as you start to see some of these and you say, oh my gosh, look at that line item's at 80% or 85%, realize that some of those are one-time costs that are front loaded and there's no more cost against that line item for the rest of the year. So again, nothing really that's alarming other than one of the things that we're working through, of course, is the implementation of the Next Gen 911. And one of the unforeseen costs that have come up is that we have to reconfigure the new phone system, which is provided through IT. That has to be reconfigured to marry up with this new system. Lieutenant Van Aram is going to actually be working that into the grant. We have some flexibility in that grant because we didn't max out. So he's going to try to incorporate those changes into the grant and have that be absorbed. But just wanted you to be aware that as we roll out this project, which is a pretty significant project,
all right, that some of these costs are coming up, and we're going to do our best to again roll those into the grant. But if they can't, we'll definitely give you folks an update to say there may be something coming down the line as part of that implementation. But it is going along very well. It's very technological. It blends not only the call taking, the dispatching, our in-house CAD system, but also that GIS component where now, when calls are coming up, they're actually coming up on a map so that they're identified, whether it's a cell phone or a landline, we're able to see right away where that caller is. So really some great technology for the dispatchers. The second thing was up at the evidence building, and we all realize that we've had that evidence building now for over a decade or close to a decade, and we have not really stuck a dime into it. We picked that thing up on a bankruptcy sale, did some very preliminary work where we basically just cleaned it up put in an overhead door, and the rest of it, we all pretty much did ourselves. We all went up there and we cleaned it up, did some painting, did a lot of work, but nothing's been done. And one of the things that has reared its ugly head is the furnace. So with winter coming, the heat exchanger on the furnace that heats the front area is malfunctioning. I've got a quote from Harsh for around $2,900 that he can switch out that furnace, and then we can keep that area heated. Right now, that entire building is being heated off the radiant heat system from the back. So we're just hoping that enough gets channeled in that we don't start freezing pipes or anything. But I think we've made it through the worst. But we definitely want to get that switched out sooner than later, because it also keeps the humidity out of the building. And when it comes to the equipment, as well as like in the armory and things, we don't need that, building up a lot of humidity. So having the furnaces running is an important part of it. I did talk to Paul Kunish. He wasn't too worried about it. He said, make your committee aware of it. And then at the end of the year, when it comes time for budget transfers, this will get worked into that. It's something I'll bring up later in the year, if and when that line item, of course, will go over. So the maintenance, that would be the maintenance line item, or machinery repair over on the evidence building. That line item is where I'm going to put this. So just giving everybody a heads up, but we'll be discussing that later in the year as we start working through those budget transfers. Yep, $29.90.
Okay.
Staffing updates.
Staffing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When we had that Kiwani door drug task force, that was broken up, right?
Yep.
So then we got some money back from that.
Correct.
So did that just go into the general budget, or?
No, that goes into an isolated fund. You'll actually see a DTF line item, and that goes into that line item, and that can't be, that can't be robbed or deferred into some other area. That was from seizures. That was from different things that occurred within the drug task force. So that has to remain earmarked in that line item. So you'll see that amount in DTF. And we'll be using that for continued operation, just like we did when we were with Door County. That same relationship will continue now with Algoma, Kiwani, and Luxembourg. So all we're doing is we're reconfiguring that DTF from being a multi-county to just a county internal DTF.
Well, I'm just looking because the last item here is the Kiwani County Drug Task Force. There's nothing budgeted
Where are you at?
on the last page.
So if we look under,
We have budgeted 8,000 a year.
Under the
Every year
assessment
past.
fund and the
Yep.
canteen fund, and then the drug task force.
and that money just went in. So again, this is January. So I always remember we're over 60, we're back in January yet on this report. So that money, when it got liquidated, I don't think we actually did the transitions until late January. So you'll probably see that transition of money coming in the February report. But as Chief Deputy just said, if you look under line item 239, it's the second one down on that first page, you'll see Drug Task Force. So there's an actual budgeted amount of 8,000 that we use for our contribution to the Drug Task Force. But then that other non-lapsing account, that'll have that larger amount that'll be in there. And that's like a revolving amount that we use for all the different components for the Drug Task Force. But again, look for that in the February report when it comes out. That's when all that got, because we had to liquidate the accounts, split the money, half went to Door, we kept half, but all that happened late January.
Okay. That answers my question.
All right, then if we move down to staffing, so we have two current that are going through, they're doing wonderful. We're very fortunate. Both of those were very good finds. One was actually a recruitment from another agency, a jail very close to us that rhymes with Brown. And then the other one had previous law enforcement actually locally. So very lucky to get those two gentlemen. They are currently going through training, doing an amazing job. As you heard, I think for those that were at the executive committee, we did start another eligibility because that was all we got off that last eligibility were those two. So, I mean, either if they don't make it or if they decide to go elsewhere or if we have other changes in our agency, it is really critical that we maintain these eligibility lists because it's going to take us 4 to 5 months just to get through the process of that, if you want to call it a hiring process, to actually get those people on the eligibility list. Because we still have to do all the testing, the interviews, all those things that we would do. We just don't hire them, but we keep them on that list. But that way, when a vacancy does happen, we've got people literally sitting on the bench ready to go so we can respond faster and therefore keep our overtime down with all these open vacancies because we're taking 6 months trying to fill vacancies. So I'm very appreciative that we established that eligibility list. That closes, I believe, on the 22nd. And then we'll start that process of hopefully establishing a few people, both male and female, to fill potential vacancies in the future.
On that vacancy list, Matt, how long and we talked about it once before, but my memory's short. We put a person on that list. How long do they usually end up staying on there before they either come to us or to someone else?
The list is good for a year, but if it's anyone that has any merit, yeah, they're not going to hang out on the bench for a year. They're going to get snapped by another agency. So, that's the other thing is that we realize that even when we establish an eligibility list, if it's anybody worth their mustard, right, they're probably not just going to hang there in limbo for a year waiting for us to hire them. So we've got to also be somewhat, fast reaction. So we don't want to get too far into the game that we establish a list only to have them all go somewhere else, but we've got to have at least some options when we end up with changes. So it's a tight balance. It is a tight balance.
Would we probably be better off when it comes to that eligibility list because of the fact that they're going off and on? Instead of going back to executive where we're getting that lapse of, it could be a month or 6 weeks, should we maybe leave that list open-ended?
It really should. I mean, really should almost be constantly in recruit mode where people at any time can submit their applications and we could run that process so that we've always got people. It's like a living and breathing eligibility list versus that sort of stagnant and static, open close. But to have that authorization, that ability, because we're not hiring, right? We're not filling any positions. All we're doing is a process. So yeah, to have this be approved every time really is somewhat, I think, maybe unnecessary because we're not, again, looking for authority to hire somebody. That will come later when the vacancy happens. All we're doing is we're just staying in recruitment mode. So we know we can always grab the best versus ending up at the bottom of the barrel because others have grabbed them.
It really does hurt us not having ongoing recruitment. If you look on WileyNet is where you post openings for law enforcement. About 3/4 of the counties out there have ongoing recruitment where they'll take somebody anytime. And we have lost good candidates in the past because we know that they're graduating school. We know we have an opening and the process is taking too long and they get scarfed up by Door County, Brown County, wherever. And once they get scarfed up, usually you don't have a chance to get them back. So it really would help to have ongoing and, at least to fill the positions we have. That's all.
Because we end up with so much influx, for your department, yours and human services is another one.
Right.
And those are two departments that you lose a person, and then we've got that lapse to establish that list. And maybe what we need to do is reconsider that.
Right. And again, it's current, so I know it's not an action, but maybe that could be something we could put as an action item at a future agenda and then move that down the pipeline to create that environment. That would be valuable. But I mean, we're good right now because we're in an eligibility list environment. But if that would be something that you would support as a committee, I think we'd greatly appreciate it.
I do. I think that you put it on let's talk about it next month as an action item.
Okay.
And I'll pre-warn Scott and Dan and it's coming. So
beyond that, our promotions are going well. So of course we have Chief Deputy Vaser, who rolled right into that new role and is doing an amazing job. We also have Lieutenant Eric Pishek, who is also rolled into his new position, and I think it's been a real eye opener because that's again that transition from the investigations into lieutenant. Anytime you go from whether it's investigations, patrol, or whatever, into those salary positions, into those supervisory positions, it's a cold flush of water. You realize the work that gets done, the time that has to be committed, after hours, middle of the night. So I think there's definitely a newfound appreciation for what goes on in those salary positions. So then subsequent to that, we've got Ryan Vandermus, who will then be rolling into investigations. But what we're waiting for is for some of the dust to settle as far as transition. We need to make sure we've got the folks available in the dispatch primarily, because right now, Jacob Jandrin is our next to go to patrol, but we can't lose him in jail dispatch yet. because of some of the FMLA, the training and the issues. So as soon as we get fortified there, then we can bring Jacob onto the road, which he's always cross-trained. So that, again, that was a great leap forward that we've already got that deputy cross-trained. He's been working in patrol intermittently to help out in FMLA issues to try to keep overtime down. So that was a one gain. But now the second gain is the minute we snap the fingers, he rolls right into patrol, no leg. And then we can bring Ryan Vandermus right into investigations. But we anticipate that happening around June. It's a lot of movements,
The
Everybody's
reason
doing
it's
a great
waiting
job.
so long is we really look at overtime in every way, everything we can do to keep that down. And right now, not moving those people to those positions is helping us a lot, save on overtime. Just, we have somebody that's gonna be going out on maternity leave, and we're gonna lose a patrol officer to backfill that position, and just looking forward at everything we can to keep stuff down.
And so the you think of where the voids are, that of course maintains a vacancy in investigations. So fortunately, we just got one of our deputies back from a long-term FMLA. He's doing well. He's recovering well from what he's been going through. So we're very blessed to have him back. Just came back this week. So that's going to help pick up some of that slack in investigations. That's going to help. But yeah, everybody just kind of picking up where they need to keep this moving and keep those costs down.
Okay, good. Overtime. You gonna do that one?
Yep.
All right.
I do have a handout. It's just last year's overtime at this point in time and this year's. And
Thank you.
as you look at those two numbers, last year's is a little higher, and really it's totally because of holidays. We're almost identical to where we were last year at this point. The way holidays work is the first check of the year, sometimes you get Christmas and Christmas Eve on it. So that's really completely outside of our control, which check the holidays on. This year, the holiday overtime was a little bit lower because Christmas was on last year's payroll. So other than that, we're doing really good on overtime, but that's a good sign because, as summer comes and fall comes, that's when most people take vacation. And if we get a couple people on vacation a weekend, we end up running with minimums. And if we're running with minimums, every time something happens, like we have an emergency detention or somebody would call in sick or a large incident, a bad traffic accident or something, then we got to call people in for overtime. So I do anticipate the overtime. This is where we want it at this time of year so that we're on budget later on in the year, basically. The other thing that is happening, the next check, there's going to be quite a bit of overtime. We did have an overdose death in our county, and that brings up overtime because we have to throw resources working that pretty hard. That investigation is going very well, and we're happy with it, but it did cost some overtime because we have to call folks in to work on that when things are hot.
One thing I'm going to add to that, just so you're all aware again, is how we work together. That overdose death was actually in one of our cities. And we've stepped right in to assist, and that's part of the drug task force. We consider that part of the work of the drug task force. So we, again, share a lot of those roles. But just so you all understand how well we work with those city municipalities, that when they get a large scale event like that, they don't have the repetition, the frequency of something that big. So it's very valuable that we have our investigators who do these on a more reoccurring basis to add that expertise to it. Because I tell you, in this case specifically, and in other cases, that can make the difference between a solid case where we're going to get convictions and we're going to find the dealers and the suppliers to basically just having something blow up in our face and we have no justice for the victims. So I'm very proud of the way we stepped into that one. At a moment's notice, we rallied the troops and everybody headed up there. We even got DCI involved at the state level to assist. So, I mean, this really is a good example of how this thing can ratchet up from the local level right up to the state. So we have the proper resources to do what needs to be done. Because this doesn't end with just the person who overdosed or even just the person who provided the drugs for that victim. We've got to make sure we try to root this out as deep as we can in our communities.
Okay.
The other interesting thing with that case is we're working hand in hand with Door County, and the Kiwani Drug Task Force disbanded, and we started our own county drug task force. But it doesn't seem to have affected the way we work with Door County at all. Things are going very well. So we're very happy with that.
Okay. Jail study, what do you want to?
Well, I
Who's
guess
gonna
I'm
do
gonna
it?
throw that one back at you guys, because there's,
That one, I think.
the ball's in somebody else's court. I
Yeah,
think I've
exactly.
beat that horse as much as I can. I will say that I've been doing a lot of community outreach, been writing the articles, been getting invitations. Just got a call from Dave Hartke. I'll be going down to Carlton. There's a couple other Franklin. Richard Wokas called last night. I've been to the city of Kiwani. So I mean, I'm getting some great feedback, and really, even like in the social media where I put them, people get it. And I hope the county board understands it, because I think there's this feeling that the community is going to come out like they did 20 years ago. No, the community gets it. And you can see that in the posts on social media, the emails that I get, the callbacks that I get. Now, does that mean that we shouldn't do our due diligence and answer questions and do more study? Absolutely. But I hope that we have the courage to continue to move this down the track, knowing that, the community gets this. They really do. But that's all I can do. So I've got another article going in this week that goes into the financials that you were all provided with at the last meeting. So I put that out to the community about the mill rate and how it could be impacted. Last week's was about the value of that third phase and how we need to complete that, so the community has the information they need. Got some great feedback from some citizens, and based on that feedback, I'm going to write another article. So it basically is going to start to build its own back and forth where people ask questions, and I've got no problem. This is full transparency. This isn't my jail. I had a gentleman call me and say, well, I want to talk to you about your jail. I said, this isn't my jail. This is your jail. When did it become my jail? I'm not going to be sheriff forever. This has nothing to do with who the sheriff is. This is your jail. So please take some ownership in it. Right? So no, I'm having some great, and I hope that we can continue to move this down the path.
Did you say you had some issues yesterday? You said you were going to bring that up.
Oh, yes. So since that last meeting where things kind of went off the track, right? I mean, there's no action being taken. There's no direction from county board. And Nancy Thielen said it at that meeting. She has been treating us with kid gloves. She has been, not turning the other way, but definitely being, compromising in how she's been doing her job. She's going to change that. That tone will change. And so we are doing walkthroughs of our jail. We had maintenance over there yesterday. We're going to be bringing other people through that jail, and we are going to be documenting, videoing the issues. One of the issues as we had yesterday that we realized that we didn't even see is we had close to a fire there. We almost had a fire in that building because the pipes, which they transitioned from hot water, they transitioned that system, right? When they built the courthouse, but they never changed anything in the jail. So they converted from one heating system to another, but basically are shoving it through the old system. All right. So we have an area in the jail where it's literally smoking the pipe insulation. It's charred. It's charred. So, I mean, we're doing things over there that are a recipe for disaster. We've got areas that we're documenting where the wall is starting to separate from the ceiling. When we go back into that back Huber dorm, you can actually see where the wall is coming away from the ceiling. There's a good 1/4 inch gap. We've got pipes that are, we've replaced some. We've got one, we'll see an image where somebody's got a 2x4 propped up against a pipe so that it stays in place, a water pipe. There's things that as we're digging into this, and the jail inspector is going to be part of this. So just so you know, and I'm not trying to threaten or anything, but we are going to be fully transparent about the condition of that jail. And what we know, you will know. And once you know it, you have an obligation to act, bottom line. So things are going to get weird.
On those points where you have those things that could be repaired, are you going to use maintenance funds to repair them, like put a hanger up to support the pipe?
This goes beyond, maintenance. Absolutely. We've been doing it all along. You can see photos where there's new PVC, there's new copper. We've been doing this all along. It's not like we've neglected it, but it's getting ahead of us. And at what point do we keep sticking money into it? We're getting to the point where you're not talking about just changing a joint or a coupling. You're talking about systems. And are we really going to commit that kind of resources to try to gut that building and put in a new HVAC system, or new piping? We've got to make some decisions.
I'm just saying that where you're pointing out things that could be repaired.
Oh, absolutely. We have no choice. Right. I've got bodies in there. I have human beings in that building, so we get it where all of a sudden faucets will blow and we got running water. Of course, I'm not going to look the other way. We have to fix those, but we're unfortunately in an emergency response environment, right? I'm not going to be proactive and say, well, let's go ahead and spend $50,000 to go and change out these components. That's a waste of taxpayer money. So we are stuck in a reactionary stance. And so unfortunately, it's going to come down to 2 a.m. Hey, this just gave out. All right, let's get somebody in there and fix it. That's a bad place to be in running a business, but that's where we are in that jail.
Matt, you gave us a report, a copy of Nancy's report. I'm going to say 2 years ago
Mhm.
or thereabouts. Do you have a copy of her latest report?
Every year. So we have that jail report every year. They have changed it. I think 2 years ago they changed it. That was the last time they provided even to us. So we just get a summary. But again, we can provide that. In fact, I can even put that right on our website that I'll provide those jail inspections because that's something everybody should see, the deficiencies that the jail inspector identifies. So we can definitely get those out.
Okay, why don't you do this if you can? Copy the committee
Mhm.
members that report, and let's put it out there so that it's out there for the public to see it. Do we also have a detailed list of all the defective items?
So that's currently what we're working with Nancy on. I mean, she's identified things over the years, but this actual walkthrough and video, this is something we literally just started in the last week. So we're going to go through and do a detailed. Again, we weren't going to waste our time. We're like, hey, we're on our way out, right? We see light at the end of the tunnel. But with the action of the county board last month, that changes things because we no longer see light at the end of the tunnel. We see a board that is just kind of walking away from it. And the last part is, we provided that PowerPoint last time, right? Gave it to everyone. All right. You know how many calls I got from county board members since that meeting? And I ended that meeting with, please call me, email me. Let's talk if you have questions. Because everybody had questions. Well, I don't have enough answers. I don't have enough information. Hey, I'm an open book. You know how many calls I got? One. Linda Teskey contacted our office and asked for some information on daily population, housing information, and I commend her for that. But if we go back to this meeting next Tuesday, and I will make a statement on it, everybody sits in those chairs, and out of 20 people, I got one call in regards to the biggest project we're going to endeavor. I mean, the ball's in your court. I can't do anymore. I am now transitioning to the community. I'm going to continue now to outreach to the community, educate the community, because I have educated the living heck out of the county board. And so now it's time for maybe some reciprocation. I can't do any more when it comes to information in the county board. They've got everything I've got. So now I'm kind of changed gears and I'm going straight to the community. And I'm telling you, they support it. They support it. They get it.
Do we have a report for our monthly visitors that we have at our facility?
Oh, yep. No, right here. If you want to pass this around, that has our daily population as well as actual name by name, who's where, whether they're home monitor, out of county, in our facility. Yep, everything's in there. So again, the numbers are slowly creeping up with the courts reopening and post-COVID, or if you want to call it post-COVID, you're starting to see processes open up. So we're going to start to see those numbers climb again. Pre-COVID, we're at close to 40. During COVID, everybody went into lockdown, those numbers dropped. Now we're going to start to see those numbers climb back up around 23 or whatever we're at this month. So you're going to start to see those numbers reclimb back to where we were pre-COVID.
Okay.
They're still being held down though. Probation and parole isn't putting holds on people like they were. And, the court system isn't at full speed yet.
Right.
Sentencing and cases are behind. That's why the population is still low.
It could be a full year. I mean, we're basically a year. Once March came, they locked everything down. So you literally have people that should have been adjudicated a year ago that are now going to start to work their way through the pipeline. So this is going to take a long time for this to, get back to where it was.
I think that the one comment that I've noticed from some of the people that I've talked with is they said, well, your population has declined during this period of COVID. So why can't we do the same thing in the future?
Because we shut down the courts. Is that really?
Pretty
we
much,
walked away from our criminal justice system. We're not around.
I think that's an item I honestly believe that everybody is neglecting to say is that, well, we shut the court system down, so it's hard to put them in jail when there's no judges or anybody else that's even in the building.
And again, if that's information from the community, but those are things that we reported on every month. So I'd hope that those questions are coming from county board members, because if they take the time to read the minutes, they would have seen that being reported over these last 12 months that, hey, our numbers are down because of COVID. But at one of the recent finance committees where overtime was questioned, I just fell off my chair because we had a county board member say, well, how come the Kiwani Sheriff's Department overtime is up in 2020 versus 2019 when you just got done talking about a pandemic? Did they think we're existing in some parallel universe? We also had people that were affected by COVID. We had operations affected by COVID. Of course, our overtime went up, and so again, I hope that there's this understanding. Sometimes it's almost surreal that questions come up when they're right there, right? We talk about it every month. We do our best to give information. And then 6 months later, well, how come you haven't told us this? So it gets, I'll be honest with you, it gets frustrating. It does get frustrating. I apologize.
Go ahead,
Just
Doak.
Just wanted to understand this a little bit, but I'm just curious. You have all inmates 26.
Hey, Doak.
I'm sorry. You talked through that, okay. All inmates are 26, but you said all females go somewhere else, right?
Door coming.
Okay, so there's 5 there, so we're down to 21. But then over here, there's nothing that says Huber, but you do have maximum, medium, and minimum. Can I assume that minimum is Huber?
So as we said in the past, because of our limitations, what should be in Huber is on home monitoring. So you can see a whole bunch of them that say home. Those people should be in Huber. But because we're so limited, we can't keep them there. So we end up having to divert people. So the people that are in Huber, for the most part, are out on home monitoring. The people that are, again, we still have to house out of county. It's changed the whole thing. But when you see a majority of those that say home, those are those on Huber. Because of COVID, primarily, we don't want those people coming in and out. So if we were able to, we basically put them on home monitor, on electronic monitor, and that way it eliminated that back and forth and the potential for cross contamination.
Yeah, it still says here, home monitor or EMP is almost 4. I guess I'm just trying to understand I don't see the kind of general classification we talk like Huber or because here's general population in house is 15.
Yep.
Home monitor 4, basically. Housed in other counties is 1.
So your general classification, that consists of main cell, our two-person cells. That's where that classification is between those few cells. Because that's all we've got. Huber, we also are, because we're putting most of our Huber out in the community, then we're actually even able to use Huber as a low-level classification. But that's not necessarily going to be represented in there. You're just going to see general.
Okay.
Well, I'd just like to say, Matt, don't put everybody in that, kind of rephrase your words on everybody doesn't get it here at the county board, because I do, and there's quite a few people here, and I think most of them do get it. I'm not going to call you for questions because I don't have any. I get it. I understand. You have did as much as what you could do to explain to us how bad the jail is. I do think that that's a great idea, getting that lady in there she's got to document everything that is wrong with that jail. Still many, many questions of people don't get it. They don't get it. They still want to stick money into that old jail. And I don't know if we got to stick the money into going around and getting bids or something. They still complain about the roof. How much is that roof going to cost? How much is, I'm like, that's not the only thing. So I don't know if a person has to go out and just get some stupid bids from people. Contractors aren't going to give you a bid if they know you're not going to do it. But we might need to get an estimate on everything that's going to cost. They can't figure that out, that you can't put a Band-Aid on something that can't have a Band-Aid. And, I'm just saying that, but we do get it, And
I apologize for that. I think what the frustration is, I think what's being seen is I've been pushing this for so long. And I need to recognize that my credibility, right? I mean, people say, well, it's Matt's jail or it's the sheriff's jail. What we need to do is spread this out. We need to have allies and champions of this project that aren't Matt Joskey, because that's what builds inertia. That's what's going to build credibility. If I'm the only one at a county board meeting that's driving this home, that sooner or later starts to become a hollow gong. And so I guess I'm looking to the members to start to build this kind of alliance, this kind of inertia, where all of a sudden 4 board members, 5 board members that are willing to be vocal, not just to be, not just to say, well, I'm not going to vote against it, but to literally be vocal and say, darn it, we need this thing. We've been kicking this down the road long enough. And especially with your expertise to say, this is an absolute waste of our time to put a ruler to this, because it's not even about what does a roof cost. You could spend millions of dollars on this building and it still doesn't suit our needs. We have to understand that it's not really even a money issue. That building is not able to suit our needs, not in the future, not even today. And so we have to get past it. We have to shut that door and move past it. So to entertain these ideas of, well, let's put a ruler to it, it's a waste of anybody's time. It's a waste of our time that we spend 5 minutes even talking about it because we have to move past it. And it's not just me saying that. We spent months in committee. We spent months in committee with a consultant, with engineers, with people that went through that. There's a report on that. There's a report on that from back to 2016, where we did the justice and jail analysis, and they went through that building and they reported it. So, how many different people need to say something before it's like, okay, I guess that's enough people. Now we believe it, and if maybe people haven't seen that documentation, I'll get that documentation again out there, but it's out there. It's been out there for almost 5 years now. And so that's the frustrating part, is we keep saying the world is wrong, and people keep saying, I don't believe you, and it's like, how many times do we have to say the world is wrong? That's a fact.
And you have to remember that there is always going to be no's, and there's always going to be yeses. And there are a lot of yeses, just so that you know, because I'm promoting it out there because they ask questions and I'm letting them know. There are so many people don't get it. They still don't get it. So
one of the things a lot of people think, Nancy coming in, the state coming in and saying, these are deficiencies, and I'm going to recognize those now and you have to do something with them. That's a two-edged sword. The bad part about that is now we're going to have to probably stick money into that building. And she's going to come in and say, your cinder blocks are cracked. This piping is bad. You need to spend, you need to replace this piping. We may have to replace all the toilets in the jail. That we're sticking a whole bunch of money on something that's shot. It's like, you got a 20-year-old vehicle that it's time to trade it in. It has way too many things wrong with it. You're going to fix them just so that you can trade it in and get the same amount of trade in, a year from now.
But that might be something that they might need. That's something they might need, because now it's to the point where you got crap or get off the pot. It's one or the other.
But what do you do in the meantime? It still takes you 3 years to build the jail. So we may end up having to, we had this talk yesterday, Chris and I, Lieutenant, she may come in and shut it down with all the deficiencies. If she shuts it down, you have 3 years where you're going to have to ship inmates out. And that bill is going to be atrocious. And you're going to have to hire new staff to transport. I'm telling you that right now, because you still have to keep communications going. And like Door County right now, they're taking our females. We have to quarantine them for 10 days before they'll take them. And if you give them a female that they don't want, they won't take it. So we're going to have a lot of problems finding another jail to house our inmates. If we ever had to ship everything out, it would be ridiculous. There really are problems. So it's a two-edged sword. That's the point. She'll come in and say there's deficiencies, but now she's really documenting them, and her supervisors are going to see them, where she kind of turned a blind eye to them because we were building.
So on the hopeful side, I did have a conversation with the chair yesterday, and he is going to have this in some way, shape, or form on the agenda for next week, or he's going to make a statement. So it sounds like he realizes that we have to move this in a direction, but I'm going to let him articulate what that may be. But I think there may be some movement or some direction, some leadership being shown that, hey, this is where we want to take it. So I'm hopeful in that. And that's all I'm asking. Let's just at least keep this thing on the tracks, because as of last month, we lost our consultant. We've got no direction. We're sitting here in spinning our wheels. And whether you agree with it or don't agree with it, that is no place to be. So we have to at least maintain momentum, direction, whatever that looks like. But after last month's meeting, this train went off the tracks, and now we've got to do our best to get it back on track, to get that buy-in, that level of comfort. And again, I'll answer whatever questions. Let's ask the questions though. And if the answers are already there, the other part is trust. I mean, we put a lot of people to work on this, a lot of our fellow board members and staff. And now there's a feeling of, well, I don't know if we trust that, or if we agree with it. So are we going to rework all this over because we, don't trust or don't agree? We have to figure out a way that we're able to move this down in a coordinated methodology, right? Methodology to be able to move it down the path, right? Because what we're doing right now is we're just vacillating. We're hemorrhaging. We don't have direction one way or the other. We've got people over here, people over there, people saying yes for this reason, but no for that reason. We've just got to figure out how to come around this issue because it's ours. We can't sell it to somebody else. We can't beg another county to do it for us. It's our time. It's our challenge, and we have to face it. And the sooner we do it, the better. The bottom line also is the money. I've had a few people say, Matt, we're at a great place right now as far as bonding for this thing. That environment may not exist in the next 12 months, 24 months. That's a huge impact, and to sit here and swing around in circles just to arrive at the same answer 24 months later or 12 months later, and now our bonding rates have jumped up. Well, now that was a waste of taxpayer resource as well. So again, I'm looking for direction from the county board. I'm hopeful for next Tuesday, and we'll just keep moving forward. But again, I'm going to continue to reach out to the community, and that's all I can do at this point. And they've been great.
Okay.
What about, I got just one comment. In the last 6 months, the price of building materials has took a huge jump. I don't know if that's a temporary thing or a permanent thing, but we just had a home go up in our town. And from when they got a building permit back in August and they started building after Thanksgiving, their costs went up 100,000. So I don't know, that's probably a universal thing.
Sure.
Okay. Do you want to go into your update on COVID?
Not a lot of change. I'll keep that one short because we've spent a lot of time on the last issue. But COVID, I mean, really, numbers are down. No recent issues. We're really trying to get back to business as normal. Everybody's done a great job. The staffing, adapting to schedule changes and making sacrifices, coming in on their days off, doing what needs to be done. Because again, we have had staff that have been affected and have caused vacancies. So overall, in regards to COVID, we're trying to get back to normal like everyone else. Those traffic stops have always been going on. Arrests that had to be arrests are still going on. But now, of course, we're able to go back to those sort of, hey, if they have to be arrested, physically take them to arrest and bring them in, versus COVID, there was a lot of decisions like, well, if they're not a risk to society, go ahead and release them and we'll do charges later. So we're starting to get back into that old role of no, if there's justification for an arrest, a physical arrest, you physically arrest, and let's get that machine going again like it always has. So, always trying to balance public safety against, well, I guess public health, right? Where do you balance that? So I think we're in a safe place. We're in a good place where we can start to focus more on public safety about doing what needs to be done versus those concerns over COVID. So that's a good place to be.
We're also in a very good place with staffing. I think we've covered that before, but we've had enough people with COVID now and enough people that are vaccinated that we're not in jeopardy of our services being affected. For a while, we were really concerned about dispatch, because you can't just bring in dispatchers from someplace else. And we've had enough people that unfortunately or fortunately have had COVID. They didn't get it that severely, and now they should be okay, plus with the vaccination. So we are getting back to training because of that also. Training went on hold for a year, and now we're I wouldn't say we're in dire straits, but we definitely have to pump a lot of training out here in the next few months because there's mandatory training every year that we have to have in by the end of June. And we're on schedule to have that all in, but we had to schedule some more training than what we usually do.
Okay, thank you. CIT training.
Yep. And again, I'll be very quick. So it came up the other day. I was doing a presentation for a group and they said, why don't you do what Green Bay did where they hire these crisis intervention officers and be able to deal with people with mental health, crisis. And I was kind of stunned because, again, this is something reported out, numerous times in the past. Over a decade ago, we were able to get a national grant where we sent every one of our law enforcement officers to CIT training. That's a week-long training put on by NAMI. And it basically provides the officers with that sort of insight into those going through or suffering with mental health crisis. So we didn't just send one, right, and make them our mental health officer. We sent the whole darn fleet of our officers, not only the county, but all the cities. That's unheard of. So when you hear places like Green Bay City say, "Oh, look, we've just hired a mental health officer," I think Door County just did that. Great, but let's realize that Kiwani County does some pretty amazing things, and this is one of them. That over a decade ago, we actually trained up the whole damn fleet to be CIT trained. All right. And when you look at, and I looked at their job descriptions, that's all they're doing is they're taking a certified law enforcement officer, sending them to that week-long training and saying, there, now you're our mental health officer, which is great again. But I'm very proud, and we should all be very proud that in Kiwani County, the entire staff, universally, city, villages, and county, all have that training. So we've been doing that for years. We've been working with Human Services where we share data and records. They're able to share their crisis plans with us so that the minute we get the call, it comes up, we're able to tell our officers, hey, this person's struggling with this. These are things that we're struggling with as a nation, literally, that we're trying to struggle with saying, well, how can we do better when responding to mental health? Because we're seeing these deadly force issues with people with mental health. This is like today's news, right? We tackled that a decade ago. So I just hope that people appreciate that and are aware of that for Kewaunee County as a whole, not the sheriff's department, but all the police departments and law enforcement. We've got some amazing people doing some amazing work.
Has that training continued on with the new officers that
Absolutely.
are coming up?
Yep. So whenever we get a new hire, I can't speak for the municipalities. I believe they are, but specifically for us, we make sure that we roll that through all of our staff, because to make that kind of investment and initiative, you don't want it to just die at the vine. And actually recently I've also contacted NAMI because Kewaunee County is one of the few that are not actually NAMI partners. So I want to create that relationship and get on the grid to actually become a NAMI county so that we can get the latest and the greatest in resources. But yeah, we maintain that.
We send them when they're in the jail. And because so many mental health patients actually end up in the criminal justice system,
In the jail.
they make it to our jail for one reason or another. Sometimes mental health becomes where they become a danger to somebody else and they end up getting arrested on charges or something. So we send everybody in the jail before they transfer out to patrol, but actually very early in their careers, usually once we got about 3 or 4 at a time, we send them. Another thing that we have training coming up that's just interesting and you might appreciate, through our insurance company with the county, we are able to borrow a Milo system, it's called. And what that is an interactive system. It's on screens and there's sort of like a video game, but it's a regular gun, just like the officers carry. And they're able to interact with the screen while a training officer changes the scenario. So they can literally, like, depending on how they're talking to the individual on the screen, the individual might pull a gun on him, or he might comply and turn around and place his hands behind his back, something like that. And if they do have to use their gun or pepper spray, gun, or taser. All of them, have these little lasers or whatever. I don't even know how it works, but if they interact with the screen, it tells them what happened. So if there's 2 officers, we can use 2 officers at a time on a scenario, and one of them sprays a guy and then he reacts. Maybe he pulls a gun out after that. The other officer has to use a gun on him. It shows in sequence what happened after it's done. So it really is some good training. We're able to borrow it for nothing. And we will be running everybody who is certified from the department through that. And we also allow the cities to come to the training with us also. So.
Great. Any other questions for Matt or for Jason? Joe?
From a town standpoint, I just want to thank you guys. I got a call last Saturday. There was a tree hanging above the road, and Officer Dave Keel called me and gave me a heads up because they don't always see everything. So took care of the problem before, and I appreciate that when they see things that they call.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Thank you.
Talking about confusion between the jail, our town board, I explained to them with your presentation, I put it up on the screen, and they said, well, Matt, what was his name? Eric Coro, he says, you county board members have to take it by the horns and vote for this. Don't put it to referendum and everything. I think people are confused between the county board being able to say, okay, let's build a jail, and then you had to go to referendum to operate it. So there's some confusion about that. And I was surprised that our board didn't realize the difference.
Right.
So it's something maybe you have to put out there too. I don't know if you have then.
That's in this week's article.
Okay.
Yep. And it is, it's because it's a decision by the board. They wouldn't have to. I get why they would want to put, the whole thing to referendum, both the building and the operating cost. I know that the chair has brought up that it would be silly to approve the jail, thinking that you would somehow build it, even if you didn't have the resource to operate it, because they did that somewhere in another part of the country. Well, that's just your responsibility. So even if the county board had a comfort level with the building, of course we wouldn't move forward until we knew we had, support from the community on the operating. So even if they didn't do both referendums, I can't imagine any one of us being naive enough or ignorant enough to actually say, well, we don't know how it's going to play out on the operating side, but let's go ahead and build it. That I can't even get my mind to that level. So even if the county board were to say, yeah, I think it's on us to approve the building of the jail, but for heaven's sake, we are no means going to actually put a shovel in the ground until we know we have community support to operate it. That would be negligent. So, again, that's a conversation for the board, but I hope nobody thinks that we would actually do that that we would, the minute we get the minute you guys felt that, hey, I think we should build a jail, we all know that the two are right. The two are married. They're not divorced from each other. So great point though.
Okay.
John,
Anything else? Yes, Tracy.
I just wanted to mention that tomorrow is 1 year anniversary since the pandemic has been going on. So I just want to commend all the different departments that have had to do changes to their work environment. Those that have put in countless hours due to the pandemic beyond their normal, work duties. Public health has taken on a great amount of hours with that. I know law enforcement's been heavily involved too with all that they've had to take on, as well as human services. So again, just a thank you to everybody with all that they've done and continue to do.
March 11th it is. Was that the data shutdown?
That wasn't the date of the shutdown. That's just the date of the first anniversary.
I think it was
when
it
it all
that last
started.
night they were talking about Fond du Lac County was the first one to ping on a positive. I know they were showing that in the news last night as well. So that was the 1 year anniversary of really the first documented positive in the state. But you're right. I think the shutdown came
Yeah,
a
it was
little bit
after
later.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, it was about a year ago when I was at a conference when everybody was leaving for emergency management because we needed to get back to our counties.
I remember that it's certainly screwed up our brew
Oh
fest.
yeah. We're on the shore.
Took care of it for 2 years so far. All right. Any other questions for Matt or Jason? All right. Traveling, anybody doing any traveling?
Do you have any, Tracy?
travel requests?
I've got one. It actually isn't until April, but she got it to me, Angie Miller. It's for the Wisconsin Civil Process Conference. We're only sending one this year. That's by the direction of the association. They don't, again, still trying to minimize the number of attendees. So this is April 20th through the 22nd. It's going to be over at Stevens Point. And again, we're just sending Angie this year. Typically we'd send two, but we're just going to send the one.
Okay.
And that again is for civil process. So that's everything dealing with our court orders, our judgments, evictions, everything that's civil process related. This is sort of that update to make sure we've got the best information.
Okay. We had the date set for next month. Proposed date for May is the 12th. Is that going to work? Hope it does for everybody.
Actually, I may not be here, but
Again, it'll be here.
the 12th.
Next month is the 14th. May it would be the 12th.
May the 12th. April won't be here.
Okay.
I won't be able to be here. I'll be at some military training, but Chief Deputy can easily handle it without me. So we're
Or I
good.
think he can handle it. I saw you and your son the other day running, but your son is out doing the heck out of you. That old man just can't keep up to him.
So that's because your daughter contacted him and recruited him to the cross country team. So now what I'm trying to do is make sure that he maintains his own pace at 15 versus trying to stay with his 51-year-old father. So yeah, he's doing a great job, but they start cross country, I think, next week. So Marlia got a hold of us, or Marlene. So she's looking forward to seeing him perform there.
Yeah, good. Okay. Only comments I have, Matt, Jason, Tracy, thank you very much. You guys do a great job. Keep it up. And we look forward to seeing you each month. In July, and I look back, July is typically a really slow month for us. And we may not do a meeting in July. Or if we have a month, some months that we have absolutely nothing. I mean, it's where we're scratching. We'll look at that. Doesn't pay to spend money. I know Scott sure as heck isn't going to complain if he doesn't have to come in the morning. And I won't either. Neither will Doug. So, all right. Any other questions? Hearing no other questions, we need a motion to adjourn.
I make motion to adjourn.
All right. Motion by Doug, seconded by Scott. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
8:16